December 27th, 7:14 p.m. Cole Morrison walked into his $3 million mansion expecting his wife to greet him at the door. Instead, he found silence. The Christmas tree unplugged, the stockings abandoned, and on the dining room table, a single envelope
The court
that would
rules that
shatter
it
his
is in the
entire
best
world.
interest of the child that sole
Inside that
custody be
envelope,
granted to the
divorce
father.
papers,
So
a
ordered.
restraining order, and something that made his
I
blood
love
run
you,
cold.
baby.
A
Always
court
remember
order
that.
stating that his son,
Mommy, please
Lucas
don't
Morrison,
go.
no longer
I
existed.
have to, sweetie.
The boy's legal name
good.
had been changed to Lucas Harper, his wife's maiden name, without his permission, without his knowledge. While he was away for 5 days with his mistress in Aspen, Rachel had done the impossible. She had vanished with their child and dismantled his life, piece by legal piece. But this story isn't about a man losing control. It's about a woman who spent 5 years being told she was crazy, paranoid, imagining things. A woman who was 6 weeks pregnant and terrified. A woman who had to choose between staying in a beautiful prison or risking everything for freedom. This is the story of how Rachel Morrison became Rachel Harper, and how one carefully planned escape turned into the fight of her life. The front door of the Morrison house clicked open at exactly 7:14 on the evening of December 27th. Cole Morrison stepped across the threshold, dragging his Louis Vuitton suitcase behind him. The wheels made a hollow sound against the hardwood floor that seemed to echo through the entire house. His phone buzzed in his pocket for the 15th time in the past hour. Amber Collins, the 26-year-old woman he had just spent 5 glorious days with at the Little Nell in Aspen. The woman who laughed at all his jokes, who made him feel powerful and desired, who didn't nag him about being home for Christmas or complain when he checked his work emails during dinner. The woman who was not his wife. Cole pulled out his phone and glanced at Amber's latest message. "Missing you already? When can I see you again?" Followed by 3 heart emojis and a kissing face. He smiled and typed back a quick reply. "Soon, I promise." Then he slipped the phone back into his pocket and looked around his house. Something was wrong. The Christmas tree still stood in the corner of the living room, but the lights were unplugged. The ornaments hung on the branches like forgotten memories. There were no presents underneath. The stockings Rachel always hung so carefully on the mantel were still there, but they looked abandoned somehow. Like props in a theater after the show had ended and everyone had gone home. "Rachel?" Cole called out. His voice bounced off the walls and came back to him. "Rachel, I'm home." No answer. He frowned and set down his suitcase. Maybe she had taken Lucas to her mother's house. No, wait. Rachel's mother had died 6 years ago in a car accident. Her father had died the year before that. Heart attack. She had no family left except for some distant cousins she never talked to. Maybe she was at a friend's house, though Rachel didn't really have friends anymore. Not since they got married. Cole had been very clear that the wives of his colleagues were not the kind of people Rachel should spend time with. They were superficial, gossipy. They would fill her head with nonsense. And Diana, that college roommate who was always trying to cause problems. Cole had made sure Rachel understood that Diana was toxic, jealous of their happiness, trying to turn Rachel against him. So where would Rachel be? Cole walked through the first floor of his house, his expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against the wood with each step. Living room. The furniture was still there, the cream-colored sectional sofa he had chosen, the glass coffee table, the abstract art on the walls that his interior designer had selected. But the family photos were gone. The silver-framed pictures that usually sat on the mantel, the wedding photo, the photo of Lucas as a newborn, the family portrait they had taken last Christmas. All gone. Cole's frown deepened. He moved into the kitchen. It was pristine, cleaner than he had ever seen it. The marble countertops gleamed. There were no dishes in the sink, no coffee maker on the counter. Rachel always left the coffee maker out because she used it every morning. He opened the refrigerator, nearly empty, a half-gallon of milk, some condiments, a container of leftover something that looked like it had been there for weeks. Cole closed the refrigerator and opened the pantry. Half the shelves were bare. The cereal was gone, the pasta, the canned goods, Lucas's favorite crackers in the shape of goldfish. His chest tightened. A cold feeling started to spread through his stomach. He turned and ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. The master bedroom. He threw open the door. Rachel's side of the closet was empty. Not just empty, completely bare. Every dress, every blouse, every pair of shoes. Gone. Her dresser drawers hung open, revealing nothing inside. Her jewelry box was missing from the top of the dresser. Cole moved to the bathroom. Her toothbrush was gone from the holder, her contact lens case, her medications, even the hair ties she always left scattered on the counter, the ones that annoyed him because they made the bathroom look messy. All gone. His hands were shaking now. He ran down the hall to Lucas's room and pushed open the door. The room looked wrong. Alien. The toy bins that were usually overflowing with action figures and cars and building blocks were empty. The walls were bare where Lucas's superhero posters had been taped up. The bookshelf held only a few books. The ones Lucas had outgrown. The ones he never read anymore. The blue nightlight that Lucas insisted on every night was unplugged and missing. The stuffed elephant that Lucas had slept with every single night since he was 6 months old was gone. Cole stood in the doorway of his son's room and felt the world tilt beneath his feet. She had left. Rachel had actually left. And she had taken Lucas with her. But how? When? He had only been gone for 5 days. Cole ran back downstairs, his heart pounding in his chest. He moved through each room more carefully now, looking for clues, looking for anything that would tell him what had happened. That's when he saw it. On the dining room table, a single manila envelope with his name written across the front in Rachel's careful, precise handwriting. The handwriting he used to think was charming, old-fashioned, like something from a different era. Beside the envelope sat Lucas's baby book, the leather-bound album that Rachel had spent hours filling with photos and little notes about Lucas's first smile, his first word, his first step, and next to the baby book, a set of keys. The keys to the house. Cole's hands trembled as he picked up the envelope. It was thick, heavy, official feeling. He tore it open. Inside were several documents. He pulled them out and spread them on the table. The first was a divorce petition. The words swam in front of his eyes. Filed December 20th, 2024. Petitioner, Rachel Ann Harper Morrison. Respondent, Cole David Morrison. Grounds for divorce, irretrievable breakdown of marriage. December 20th. That was 2 days before he left for Aspen. How had she filed for divorce without him knowing? He set that document aside and looked at the next one. Court order regarding name change of minor child. Cole's blood turned to ice as he read the official legal language. The petition to change the legal name of Lucas James Morrison, minor child, date of birth, March 15, 2020, to Lucas James Harper is hereby granted. This change shall be effective December 24th, 2024. The document was signed by Judge Harold Sanders. There was an official court seal stamped in blue ink. His son's name had been changed from Morrison to Harper. Harper was Rachel's maiden name, the name she had before she married him, before she became Mrs. Cole Morrison, and she had done it legally, through the courts, without his permission, without his knowledge. How was that even possible? Cole grabbed the third document with shaking hands. Emergency Protective Order. Cole David Morrison is hereby prohibited from any contact, direct or indirect, with Rachel Ann Harper and minor child Lucas James Harper. The respondent shall not come within 500 feet of the petitioner or the minor child. This order is effective immediately and shall remain in effect pending further court proceedings. Violation of this order may result in arrest and criminal prosecution. A restraining order against him. Rachel had gotten a restraining order that prevented him from seeing his own son. The final item in the envelope was a handwritten letter. Cole recognized Rachel's handwriting immediately. He unfolded the paper and read, "Cole, by the time you read this, Lucas and I will be somewhere you cannot find us. The court has already granted me temporary full custody of our son. His last name is Harper now, my maiden name. Not yours, not his grandfather's, mine. You spent Christmas with Amber at the Little Nell in Aspen. Suite 412, $850 per night. I know because I found the confirmation email 3 weeks ago. Along with all the others, I found 18 months worth of hotel confirmations. Different cities, different hotels. Always with Miss Collins as your guest. But this letter is not about Amber. This is not about your affair. This is about something much more important. This is about Lucas waking up on Christmas morning and asking me why Daddy promised to be home but wasn't. This is about you screaming at me for being dramatic when Lucas had a 103-degree fever and I asked you to come home early from your meeting. This is about 5 years of you telling me I was crazy, paranoid, unstable, imagining things when I knew exactly what was happening. This is about you making me feel like I was losing my mind when I was actually seeing the truth more clearly than I ever had before. You will want to call your lawyers. Please do. Judge Sanders has already reviewed all of the evidence. The recordings of our arguments, the emails you sent to your father discussing my so-called mental instability, the medical records from my emergency room visits, the witnesses who will testify about your behavior. I filed the paperwork during the only window you gave me, when you were too distracted with Amber to pay attention to what I was doing. Do not try to find us. The restraining order is real. It is legally enforceable. If you violate it, you will lose much more than your wife. Rachel. Cole read the letter twice, then a third time. His breath was coming faster now. His hands clenched the paper so hard it crumpled. Then he let out a roar of rage that echoed through the empty house. He grabbed his phone and hurled it across the room with all his strength. It hit the wall and exploded into pieces. Glass and metal scattered across the hardwood floor. His chest heaved, his vision blurred with fury. She had planned this, every detail. She had waited until he was in Aspen, until he was unreachable, and she had used that time to destroy everything. His marriage, his family, his control over his own life. Cole pulled out his iPad with trembling fingers. He opened the Find My iPhone application. Maybe he could track Rachel's phone, find out where she had gone. Rachel's iPhone. Location services disabled. He tried Lucas's iPad, the tablet he had given his son for his 4th birthday. Lucas's iPad, device offline, last known location unavailable. She had thought of everything. Cole scrolled through his contacts and found his attorney. Richard Hartley, the best divorce lawyer in Connecticut, $850 an hour, worth every penny. He pressed call. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. Of course, it was 7:30 on the evening of December 27th. The day after Christmas. Richard was probably at home with his family. Cole hung up without leaving a message. Then he scrolled to another number. His mother. Patricia Morrison answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm and cheerful. Cole, darling, how was your trip? Did you and your colleagues have productive meetings? Cole's voice came out strangled. She's gone. What? Who's gone? Rachel, she's gone. She took Lucas and she's gone. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Patricia spoke again, her voice had changed completely. The warmth was gone, replaced by ice. What do you mean gone? I mean she left me, Mother. She filed for divorce. She got a restraining order against me. And she changed Lucas's name, legally, through the courts. His name is Lucas Harper now. The silence on the other end of the line stretched out so long that Cole thought the call had dropped. Then Patricia spoke. Her voice was hard, sharp, dangerous. I am calling Richard Hartley right now. You are not to do anything. Do you understand me, Cole? Nothing. Do not try to find her. Do not call her. Do not violate that restraining order. We will handle this the proper way, through the legal system, with lawyers and judges. Do you understand? But she took my son, and we will get him back. But not if you do something stupid that lands you in jail. Stay in the house. I will call you back within the hour. Patricia hung up. Cole stood alone in his empty house. The house he had bought with his hedge fund money. The $3.2 million colonial in Greenwich with the circular driveway and the professionally landscaped yard and the state-of-the-art kitchen that Rachel rarely used because he preferred to eat out. The house that was supposed to represent everything he had achieved. His success, his status, his control over every aspect of his life. And in 5 days, while he was skiing in Aspen and sleeping with his assistant and drinking expensive champagne, his wife had managed to dismantle all of it. She had left him, filed for divorce, changed their son's name, gotten a restraining order that prevented him from even trying to find them. Cole walked back to the dining room table and picked up the court order about the name change. He read it again carefully. Filed December 20th. Service attempted at the Little Nell, Aspen, Colorado, Suite 412, on December 23rd. Respondent unable to be located. Order granted by default on December 24th. And suddenly, Cole understood. Rachel had listed his Aspen hotel as his address. The process server had tried to serve him there. But Cole had been on the slopes that day, had turned off his phone so Amber wouldn't be interrupted by work calls. The hotel couldn't reach him, so the judge had granted the order by default, because Cole couldn't be located to object. She had used his own affair against him, used the fact that he was unreachable because he was with his mistress. It was brilliant, devastating, and completely legal. Cole sank into one of the dining room chairs and put his head in his hands. For the first time in his entire adult life, Cole Morrison had lost control, and he had no idea how to get it back. December 6th, 3 weeks before Cole came home to an empty house. Rachel Morrison sat in the pediatrician's waiting room with Lucas curled up against her side. Her son's small body was warm with fever. Another ear infection, the fourth one this year. The pediatrician said it was normal for children Lucas's age, that his eustachian tubes would mature and the infections would stop. But Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something else was wrong, that the constant illnesses were a sign of stress, that Lucas's little body was manifesting the tension that filled their house like smoke. Lucas played quietly with wooden blocks in the corner of the waiting room. He was always quiet at the doctor's office. Quiet everywhere, really. He had learned early that loud noises made Daddy angry. Rachel pulled out her phone and checked her messages. Cole had texted 2 hours ago. Late meeting. Don't wait up. She had stopped believing the late meetings months ago, maybe even years ago, but she had learned not to ask questions. Questions made Cole defensive, made him turn things around on her, made him say she was being paranoid, controlling, that she didn't trust him, and maybe he was right. Maybe she was paranoid. Maybe there was nothing wrong at all and she was just broken somehow. Damaged, unable to be the wife Cole needed. Rachel sighed and opened the email app on her phone. She and Cole shared an iPad at home for household things, grocery lists, Lucas's school information, calendar events. Cole's email account was logged in on the iPad. He always said he had nothing to hide. That privacy in a marriage was the first sign of trouble. A new email notification appeared at the top of the screen. Subject line, RE, Aspen confirmation. Rachel's finger hovered over the notification. She shouldn't open it. That was snooping, invading Cole's privacy, exactly the kind of paranoid, untrusting behavior he always accused her of. But something made her tap the screen. The email opened. Dear Mr. Morrison, thank you for confirming your reservation. We look forward to welcoming you to the Little Nell. Your suite, number 412, will be ready for check-in on December 22nd. Check-out is December 27th. We have noted that this is a reservation for 2 guests, Mr. Cole Morrison and Miss Amber Collins. If you require any special amenities during your stay, please do not hesitate to contact our concierge service. We hope you enjoy your time in Aspen. Rachel read the email 3 times. The Little Nell. She knew that hotel. It was one of the most expensive ski resorts in Aspen. Rooms started at $800 a night, December 22nd through 27th. That was Christmas week. Cole had told her he had to work through the holidays. Year-end strategy meetings with clients. He had seemed so frustrated about it. Had said he wished he could be home with her and Lucas, but business was business. And Miss Amber Collins. Rachel clicked on Cole's sent folder, scrolled through his recent emails, found the original reservation request. I would like to book Suite 412 for December 22nd through 27th. 2 guests, myself and my associate, Miss Amber Collins. Please charge the reservation to my corporate card. Rachel's hand started to shake. She scrolled further back in Cole's sent folder. November 15th, hotel confirmation for the Ritz-Carlton in Boston. 2 guests, Mr. Morrison and Miss Collins. October 3rd, the St. Regis in New York. 2 guests, September 21st, the Four Seasons in Miami, in August 12th, the Fairmont in San Francisco. Rachel kept scrolling. The pattern went back 18 months. Different cities, different hotels, always luxury properties, always 2 guests, always Miss Amber Collins. 18 months of hotel rooms, 18 months of lies. Rachel sat perfectly still in the pediatrician's waiting room. Lucas was humming softly to himself as he built a tower with blocks. The receptionist was typing at her computer. Everything looked completely normal. But Rachel felt something shift inside her chest. She didn't feel angry. She didn't feel sad. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Relief, because she wasn't crazy. She had known something was wrong. She had felt it in her bones. And now she had proof. Cole was having an affair. Had been having an affair for 18 months, and he had been telling her she was paranoid, unstable, imagining things. But she hadn't been imagining anything. Rachel took a screenshot of each email, saved them to her phone. Then she closed the email app and sat back against the uncomfortable waiting room chair. She put one hand on her stomach without thinking about it, then froze. Her stomach. She had missed her period. She had been so stressed and exhausted that she hadn't even noticed. But now that she thought about it, she was over a week late. Rachel's heart started to pound. No, please, no, not now. That night, after the pediatrician prescribed antibiotics for Lucas's ear infection, after she picked up the prescription at the pharmacy, after she gave Lucas his medicine and put him to bed, Rachel sat at the dinner table with Cole and tried to act normal. Cole was in a good mood. He talked about his day at work, a big deal he was closing, a client who was difficult but ultimately had signed the contract. He drank 2 glasses of expensive red wine with dinner and didn't seem to notice that Rachel barely touched her food. After dinner, Rachel waited until Cole went upstairs to take a shower. Then she gathered her courage and spoke. "Who is Amber Collins?" Cole was halfway up the stairs. He stopped and turned around. "What?" "Amber Collins. Who is she?" Cole came back down 3 steps. His expression was neutral, almost bored. "My new executive assistant." "Why?" Rachel's voice was steady, calmer than she felt. "You're taking her to Aspen for Christmas?" Now Cole's expression changed. His eyes narrowed. "It's a business trip, Rachel. I told you to be to them. Year-end strategy meetings. At the Little Nell, a luxury ski resort, for 5 days over Christmas." "Are you seriously doing this right now?" Cole's voice was starting to rise. "I work 60 hours a week to provide this lifestyle for you, Coom, to give you this house and this life. And you're what? Accusing me of something?" "I saw the emails. Aspen, Boston, New York, Miami, San Francisco. 18 months of hotels, always with Amber Collins." Cole came down the rest of the stairs. He walked toward her slowly. His face was flushed. "You went through my email? You invaded my privacy?" The email was on our shared iPad. "So you were snooping, looking for something to be upset about." Jesus Christ, Rachel. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This obsessive, paranoid behavior, it's not normal. Rachel felt the familiar tightening in her chest, the self-doubt creeping in like poison. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was being unreasonable. "I'm not crazy," she whispered. Cole's voice softened. He changed tactics. This was something he did. Started out angry and then became concerned. Caring. It always made Rachel feel like she was the one in the wrong. "I didn't say crazy. I said you're not well. Rachel, I'm worried about you. This paranoia, these accusations. Maybe you should talk to someone. A therapist. I think you might be depressed." "I'm not depressed." "Your mother had mental health issues, didn't she? After you were born? Postpartum depression?" Rachel flinched. That was different. Was it? Because I'm seeing a lot of the same patterns. The anxiety, the irrational thoughts, the obsessive behavior. "I love you, Rachel, but I can't help you if you won't admit there's a problem." He turned and walked back upstairs. A moment later, Rachel heard the shower turn on. She stood alone in the kitchen and felt tears sliding down her face. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was broken. Maybe there was something wrong with her brain chemistry. Her mother had struggled, had spent months in a fog after Rachel was born, had needed medication. Maybe Rachel was the same way. She wiped her eyes and went upstairs to check on Lucas. He was asleep in his bed, his breathing slightly congested from the ear infection. Rachel sat on the edge of his bed and watched him sleep, and then she felt it again, that strange flutter in her stomach. The next morning, Rachel drove to Target. She couldn't take a pregnancy test at home. Cole might find it, might ask questions. might use it as more evidence that she was unstable. So she sat in the public bathroom at Target on a closed toilet seat and stared at the pregnancy test in her shaking hands. 2 pink lines, positive. Rachel put her head in her hands and tried not to cry. She was 6 weeks pregnant with Cole's baby. Cole, who was having an affair with his 26-year-old assistant. Cole, who told her she was paranoid and unstable. Cole, who made her feel like she was losing her mind. She couldn't do this. She couldn't bring another baby into this house. Couldn't raise another child in this environment where she walked on eggshells every day. Where Lucas was learning to make himself small and quiet to avoid making Daddy angry. She couldn't do this, which meant she had to leave. For the next 3 days, Rachel researched. She waited until Cole left for work each morning. Then she sat at the computer and searched. Connecticut divorce law, emergency custody provisions, name change procedures for minors, restraining order requirements, domestic violence resources. She learned that psychological abuse was recognized in Connecticut courts, that a pattern of manipulation and control would be grounds for an emergency protective order, that medical records and recordings could be used as evidence. She learned that she could file for divorce without Cole's signature, that she could request temporary custody, that she could ask the court to protect her. And then she found the information that changed everything. Connecticut law allowed emergency name changes for minor children if one parent could not be reasonably located for service of process. If the parent was unavailable or unreachable at the time the petition was filed, a judge could grant the name change by default. Rachel stared at the computer screen. Cole was going to Aspen from December 22nd through December 27th. He would be at the Little Nell, Suite 412. What if she listed that as his address when she filed? What if the process server went to the hotel and Cole wasn't in his room? What if he was on the slopes with Amber? What if he had his phone turned off like he always did when he was supposed to be relaxing? The process server wouldn't be able to find him. Would file a report saying service was attempted, but the respondent could not be located. And then the judge could grant the name change by default. It was risky, but it might work. Rachel picked up her phone. Her hands were shaking. She scrolled through her contacts and found a name she hadn't called in 3 years. Diana Foster. Diana had been Rachel's college roommate, her best friend. They had lived together for 4 years, had stayed up late talking about their dreams, had supported each other through breakups and bad grades and family problems. And then Rachel had met Cole. And Cole had slowly, carefully, systematically separated Rachel from everyone who cared about her. He had said Diana was jealous, that Diana was trying to cause problems, that Diana didn't understand their relationship, that a good wife focused on her family, not on friends who were clearly toxic. So Rachel had stopped answering Diana's calls, had let the friendship die because it was easier than fighting with Cole. The phone rang 4 times. Rachel almost hung up. Then Diana answered. Rachel? Oh my God, Rachel, is that really you? And Rachel started crying. I need help. Diana Foster had not changed much in 3 years. She was still tall and confident, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She still wore her dark hair cut short in a no-nonsense style. She still had the same directness that Rachel had always admired and Cole had always hated. They met at a coffee shop in New Haven, halfway between Greenwich and Boston. Diana had driven down the same day Rachel called, had canceled her afternoon appointments and gotten in her car without hesitation. Now they sat in a corner booth with coffee neither of them was drinking. Tell me everything, Diana said. So Rachel did. She told Diana about the hotel confirmations, about the affair that had been going on for 18 months, about Cole calling her paranoid and unstable, about the way he had slowly isolated her from everyone she knew. She told Diana about Lucas's anxiety, about the way her son flinched when Cole raised his voice, about the nightmares Lucas had started having. And finally, she told Diana about the pregnancy test, about the 2 pink lines that meant she was trapped even more firmly than before. Diana listened without interrupting. When Rachel finished, Diana was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You need to leave him." "I know. And you need to do it in a way that protects you and Lucas, because Cole is going to fight back. Men like him always do." "I know that too." Diana pulled out her laptop. "I'm a family law attorney. This is what I do. I help people leave bad situations." And Rachel, your situation is bad. Cole has been gaslighting you for years, making you doubt your own sanity. That's abuse, psychological abuse. And it's documented in Connecticut law as grounds for an emergency protective order. Rachel felt something loosen in her chest. Someone believed her. Someone who knew the law was telling her she wasn't crazy. What do I need to do? First, we gather evidence. Every email, every hotel confirmation, every recording you can make of his behavior. Connecticut is a one-party consent state, which means you can record your conversations with Cole without his knowledge. Start doing that. Okay. Second, we document everything. Lucas's anxiety, your medical records. Do you have any? Rachel hesitated, then nodded. I've been to the emergency room a few times. For what? A twisted ankle. Cole said I tripped, but he had grabbed my arm and pulled me off balance. A bruised wrist when he grabbed me too hard during an argument. A concussion when I fell down the stairs. I was backing away from him during a fight and lost my footing. Diana's expression was carefully controlled. Did you tell the doctors how these injuries happened? I said I was clumsy. I didn't want to make trouble. Rachel, those medical records are evidence. They show a pattern. We can use them. Diana typed quickly on her laptop. Third, we need to time this perfectly. Cole is going to Aspen December 22nd through 27th, right? Yes. And you're sure he'll be unreachable? He always turns off his phone when he's on vacation. Says he needs to disconnect from work stress. Diana smiled grimly. Perfect. Here's what we're going to do. On December 20th, we file for divorce, emergency custody, a protective order, and a name change for Lucas. We list Cole's address as the Little Nell in Aspen, because that's where he'll be during the relevant time period. But he'll be served there? The process server will attempt service there, but Cole will be on the slopes or in bed with his mistress or having breakfast. The point is, he won't be in his hotel room at the exact moment the process server arrives. The server will leave a message at the front desk. We'll try again. We'll ultimately file a report saying respondent could not be located at the listed address. And then, under Connecticut's emergency provisions, the judge can grant default orders. The name change, the temporary custody, the protective order, all of it. Because Cole was unavailable to object. Rachel felt hope fluttering in her chest. Real hope. Not the desperate kind she had been clinging to, but actual, tangible hope. Is that legal? Completely legal. You're not lying about his address. He will be at that hotel during that time. It's not your fault he chose to be unreachable while on a trip with his mistress. Over the next 10 days, Diana drove to Connecticut every single day. They met in secret. Coffee shops, libraries, parks, anywhere Cole wouldn't see them. Rachel gathered evidence. She took screenshots of every hotel confirmation. She printed out the emails where Cole discussed her supposed mental instability with his father. She started recording their arguments on her phone. On December 11th, Cole came home late from work. Rachel had been putting Lucas to bed. When she came downstairs, Cole was already pouring himself a drink. "You're home late," Rachel said quietly. "I told you, late meeting." Rachel pulled out her phone and pressed record. She kept it in her pocket where Cole couldn't see. "Was Amber at the meeting?" Cole's head snapped up. "What did you just say?" "Amber Collins, your executive assistant." "Was she at the meeting?" Cole's face flushed. "That's none of your business." "I'm your wife. Your schedule is my business." "My wife," Cole laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "My wife doesn't question me. My wife doesn't snoop through my emails. My wife trusts me." "I did trust you. For 5 years, I trusted you. And now you don't? Is that what you're saying? You don't trust me?" Rachel kept her voice level. "I found the hotel confirmations, Cole. 18 months of them." Cole slammed his glass down on the counter so hard Rachel flinched. "You know what your problem is, Rachel. You're never satisfied. I give you everything. This house, this life, I work myself to death to provide for you, and it's never enough. I didn't ask for this house. Oh, so now you're ungrateful too? Jesus Christ. You know what? I'm done with this conversation. You clearly need professional help. This paranoia is getting out of control. He stormed out of the room. Rachel waited until she heard his footsteps on the stairs. Then she stopped the recording and saved it. She had what she needed. On a December 14th, Diana came to Greenwich with all the paperwork prepared. She had worked late into the night for 3 days getting everything ready. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Rachel Ann Harper Morrison, petitioner. Cole David Morrison, respondent. Grounds, irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Motion for emergency protective order, based on pattern of psychological abuse, intimidation, and control. Petition for emergency custody, based on respondent's documented affairs. Pattern of manipulation, and petitioner's well-founded fear for child's emotional safety. Petition for name change of minor child, Lucas James Morrison to Lucas James Harper. Rachel read through each document carefully. Her hands shook as she signed her name. "What if this doesn't work?" she asked Diana. "Then we try something else." "But Rachel, I've been doing this for 15 years. I know how to read judges. I know how to present evidence. Judge Sanders is fair. He'll look at the recordings, the medical records, the hotel confirmations. He'll see what Cole has been doing to you, and he'll protect you." And Lucas? Especially Lucas. On December 20th, while Cole was at his office closing a deal and probably making plans for his upcoming trip to Aspen with Amber, Diana filed all the paperwork with the Connecticut Superior Court. Everything was done electronically. The documents were stamped with the court seal and assigned to Judge Harold Sanders. On the petition forms, under respondent's current address, Diana had typed, "The Little Nell, 675 East Durant Avenue, Colorado 81611, Suite 412, because that's where Cole would be. Starting in 2 days. The process server received the documents on December 21st. He was instructed to serve them on December 23rd, so to give Cole time to arrive at the hotel and settle in. Rachel spent December 21st and 22nd packing. While Cole was at work, she carefully packed her clothes. Lucas's clothes, Lucas's favorite toys, the important documents, birth certificates, social security cards, medical records, the $12,000 in cash she had been hiding for 2 years, small amounts, $20 here, $50 there, taken from the grocery money Cole gave her each week, hidden in an envelope inside a box of tampons in the bathroom closet. Because Cole would never look there. On the evening of December 22nd, Cole came home early. He was in a good mood, excited about his trip. "I'm leaving for the airport at 5 tomorrow morning," he said. "I'll be back on the 27th. Try not to burn the house down while I'm gone." He said it like a joke, but there was an edge to it. There was always an edge. Rachel smiled and nodded. "Have a good trip." Cole kissed her forehead, a perfunctory gesture. Then he went upstairs to pack. Rachel waited until he was asleep. Then she carried the first load of boxes to her car. It took 3 trips. She was terrified Cole would wake up, would hear her, would come downstairs and demand to know what she was doing. But he didn't. On the morning of December 23rd, Cole's alarm went off at 4:30. Rachel pretended to be asleep as he got ready. He didn't kiss her goodbye, just grabbed his suitcase and left. Rachel heard his car pull out of the driveway, heard the sound of the engine fade into the distance. Then she got up and finished packing. At 9 a.m., the process server arrived at the Little Nell in Aspen. He asked the front desk to ring Suite 412. No answer. He left a message. Tried again at 11, again at 1. Finally, at 3 p.m., he filled out his report. Service attempted at listed address. Respondent not available. Multiple attempts made. Unable to complete service. The report was filed with the court on December 24th, Christmas Eve. Judge Sanders reviewed the emergency petitions that morning. He looked at the evidence. The hotel confirmations showing 18 months of infidelity. The recordings of Cole's psychological manipulation. The medical records showing Rachel's repeated injuries. The statements from Lucas's preschool noting the child's increasing anxiety. At 2 p.m. on December 24th, Judge Sanders signed the orders. Petition for name change, granted. Lucas James Morrison shall hereafter be known as Lucas James Harper. Emergency custody, granted. Temporary full physical custody, awarded to petitioner Rachel Ann Harper. Emergency protective order, granted. Respondent Cole David Morrison shall have no contact with petitioner or minor child. Distance restriction, 500 feet. The orders were stamped with the court seal and entered into the record. Rachel was at Diana's house in Boston when she got the call. It worked, Diana said. All of it. You have custody, Lucas's name is changed, and the protective order is in effect. Rachel sat down hard on Diana's couch. Lucas was playing with blocks on the floor. He looked up at her. Mommy, why are you crying? Rachel pulled him into her lap. Because we're safe now, baby. We're safe. She had done it. Against all odds, with almost no money and no support system, she had gotten herself and her son away from Cole Morrison. And she had done it legally, properly, in a way that would stand up in court. Cole would come home in 4 days to an empty house, to divorce papers and court orders and the ruins of the life he had built on lies and control. And Rachel would be far away, in a different state, with a new name for her son and a protective order that would keep Cole from coming near them. She had won, at least she thought she had. She didn't know that the real battle was just beginning. December 28th, the day after Cole discovered his empty house. Cole Morrison sat in his father's study in the Morrison family estate in Greenwich. The room smelled of leather and old money. Dark wood paneling covered the walls. A massive mahogany desk dominated the space. Behind the desk hung a portrait of Cole's grandfather, the man who had founded Morrison Capital Management in 1952. Cole's father, Robert Morrison, sat behind the desk. He was 66 years old, retired from the hedge fund he had built into a billion-dollar empire, and dying, though only the family knew. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 6 months to live, maybe less. Cole's mother, Patricia Morrison, sat in one of the leather chairs. She was 64, perfectly coiffed silver hair, pearls at her throat, the president of the Greenwich Junior League, a woman who had spent her entire life maintaining appearances, and Richard Hartley, Cole's attorney, 56 years old, silver hair, $850 an hour. Known throughout Connecticut as the most ruthless divorce lawyer in the state, Richard had reviewed all the documents, the divorce petition, the name change order, the protective order. He set them down on the desk and looked at Cole with professional detachment. Let me be very clear about your situation, Richard said. Your wife outmaneuvered you. The name change is legal. The protective order is valid. She filed first. She used proper legal channels. And she did it while you were unreachable. Cole slammed his fist on the arm of his chair. So what the hell am I supposed to do? We build a counter case. We prove that she's unstable, manipulative, and unfit to have custody of your son. We get the emergency orders reversed. Patricia leaned forward. She had been silent until now, but her eyes were hard. How long will this take? If we move quickly and she makes mistakes, we could have a hearing in 6 to 8 weeks. If she has a competent attorney and stays disciplined, it could take months. Months? Cole's voice cracked. That's my son. Robert Morrison spoke for the first time. His voice was weak. The cancer was ravaging his body, though he refused to show it. Cole, control yourself. Emotion loses court cases. Cole took a deep breath, tried to steady himself. Patricia's eyes narrowed. We need to find her first. Where would she go? Cole thought Rachel had no family left. Her parents were dead. She had no siblings, no close relatives that he knew of. Diana, he said suddenly. Diana Foster, her college roommate. She's a family lawyer in Boston. Richard pulled out his phone and made a call. 20 minutes later, he had Diana's address, her office address, her home address, even her car registration. She lives in a brownstone in Back Bay, Richard said. Owns it outright, no mortgage. She's been practicing family law for 15 years. Good reputation, smart, careful. So Rachel has a good lawyer, Patricia said. Rachel has an excellent lawyer, which means this is going to be difficult. Cole stared at the documents on his father's desk. I want my son back. And we'll get him back, Richard said. But we need to be strategic. We can't just charge in. We need to build a case that shows Rachel is unfit, that she's unstable, that Lucas is better off with you. How do we do that? Richard opened his briefcase and pulled out a legal pad. Tell me about Rachel. Everything, her mental state, her behavior, anything that could be used to show she's not capable of caring for Lucas. Cole thought about it. She's always been anxious, paranoid. She accused me of having an affair. Were you having an affair? Cole hesitated, then nodded. Richard didn't react. Okay, but we don't admit that. As far as the court is concerned, Rachel's accusations were unfounded, symptoms of her paranoid thinking. But she has hotel confirmations, which prove you traveled for business with a female colleague, nothing more. Unless there are photos of you in bed with this woman, there's no definitive proof. Cole felt a small measure of relief. Richard continued, what else? Has Rachel ever hurt Lucas? No, she's a good mother. Attentive. Maybe too attentive. Too attentive, how? She hovers, worries constantly, keeps him home from school if he has the slightest sniffle. It's excessive, Domanis. Richard wrote something on his pad. Good. We can frame that as evidence of anxiety disorder, inability to make rational decisions about the child's welfare. What about her medical history? She's been to the emergency room a few times. For what? A twisted ankle, a bruised wrist. She's clumsy. Richard looked up. Clumsy, okay? And did you ever contribute to those injuries? Cole's jaw tightened. I may have grabbed her arm once or twice during arguments, not hard, just to get her attention when she was being hysterical. Richard was quiet for a moment. Then he said, we don't mention that, ever. If those medical records surface, we say Rachel injured herself and tried to blame you. We say it's part of her pattern of delusional thinking. Patricia spoke up. What about her mother? Didn't she have some kind of mental illness? Cole nodded. Postpartum depression, after Rachel was born. She was on medication for years. Richard smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Perfect. We argue that Rachel has inherited mental health issues, that she's showing the same symptoms, that she needs treatment before she can safely care for a child. But that's not true, Cole said. Then he caught himself. I mean, maybe it is true. She has been acting strange lately. Strange how? Distant, secretive. She stopped engaging with me, stopped cooking the meals I like, stopped trying to please me. Richard wrote more notes. We can work with this, paint a picture of a woman spiraling, becoming erratic and unpredictable, a danger to herself and potentially to her child. Robert Morrison coughed, a wet, painful sound. Richard, be realistic. What are our actual chances? Richard set down his pen. Honestly, it depends on the judge. Judge Sanders granted the emergency orders, which suggests he found Rachel's evidence compelling. But emergency orders are temporary. At the full hearing, we'll have a chance to present our side. If we can show that Rachel manipulated the system, that she's mentally unstable, that Cole is the more fit parent, we have a good chance of getting custody. And if we can't show that, then we're looking at joint custody at best, probably with Rachel as primary custodial parent. That's not acceptable, Patricia said sharply. Then we need to make Rachel look bad. Very bad. We need to create doubt about her fitness as a mother. Cole leaned forward. How do we do that? We start by filing our own emergency motion. We request immediate return of the child based on Rachel's flight across state lines. We claim parental kidnapping. But she has a court order. She has a Connecticut court order. She's now in Massachusetts. We argue that she's violating the spirit of the custody arrangement by taking Lucas out of state without your knowledge or consent. Will that work? It might not win us custody immediately, but it will put Rachel on the defensive, force her to justify her actions, create a narrative that she's running and hiding rather than co-parenting responsibly. Richard pulled more documents from his briefcase. I've already drafted the filings, emergency motion for return of child, petition to vacate the name change on grounds of improper service, counter petition for full custody to you, and a motion to compel Rachel to undergo psychiatric evaluation. Cole read through the documents. They painted Rachel as unstable, manipulative, possibly dangerous. They described her as a woman who had fled across state lines with a child, who had changed the child's name without proper notification to the father, who was exhibiting signs of serious mental illness. It was a devastating portrait, and almost none of it was true, but Richard assured him it didn't matter. In family court, Perception is reality. We're creating a narrative. Rachel is unstable. You are the responsible parent. The evidence will follow. Patricia stood up. When do we file these documents? Tomorrow, December 29th. We'll request an emergency hearing for the first week of January. And what about the restraining order? Can Cole contact Rachel? Absolutely not. Any violation of that order will destroy our case. Cole, you cannot call her, cannot text her, cannot go near her, cannot go to Diana Foster's house. Do you understand? Cole nodded reluctantly. Good. Now we need to talk about public relations. This is going to get messy. Do you have any mutual friends? Anyone who might talk to the media? Cole thought, most of our social circle is from my work. They're more my friends than Rachel's. Good. Start planting seeds. Nothing overt, just expressions of concern about Rachel's mental state. Questions about whether she's capable of caring for Lucas. Make people wonder. Patricia smiled. I can handle that. The women at the country club love to talk. December 29th, Richard Hartley filed the counter petitions with the Connecticut Superior Court. Motion for emergency return of minor child. Petition to vacate name change order. Petition for full custody to father. Motion to compel psychiatric evaluation of mother. The documents were served on Diana Foster's office on December 30th. Diana called Rachel immediately. They filed their response. It's aggressive. They're claiming you kidnapped Lucas. Rachel felt her stomach drop. But I have a court order. I know, and we'll fight it. But Rachel, this is going to get ugly. Cole has Richard Hartley. He's one of the best attorneys in the state, and he's ruthless. What do we do? We prepare. We gather more evidence. We make sure our case is airtight, and we hope the judge sees through Cole's lies. The hearing was set for January 6th. Rachel had 1 week to prepare for the fight of her life, January 2nd. Rachel sat in Diana's living room while Lucas napped upstairs. She hadn't slept more than a few hours in the past week. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Cole's face, heard his voice, imagined him taking Lucas away. The doorbell rang. Rachel jumped. Diana answered it. A woman in her 40s stood on the porch. Professional clothes, a badge hanging from a lanyard around her neck. Diana Foster? I'm Lauren Phillips from the Connecticut Department of Children and Families. I'm here to conduct a welfare check on Lucas Morrison. Diana stepped aside. Of course. Please come in. Rachel stood up, her heart pounding. Is there a problem? Lauren gave her a professional smile, warm but detached. No problem, Miss Harper. This is standard procedure when there's a custody dispute. The court has requested that we verify the child's safety and well-being. She spent 2 hours interviewing Rachel, asked about Lucas's routine, his meals, his sleep schedule, his medical care. She checked the house, looked at where Lucas slept, inspected the bathroom, the kitchen, made notes on a tablet. Then she asked to speak with Lucas alone. Rachel hesitated. Diana put a hand on her arm. It's okay. It's part of the process. Rachel nodded and went upstairs to wake Lucas. He was groggy and confused. She explained that a nice lady wanted to talk to him, asked him some questions. She tried to keep her voice calm, tried not to let him see how terrified she was. Lauren talked to Lucas in Diana's living room for 45 minutes. Rachel sat in the kitchen, unable to hear what they were saying, unable to do anything but wait. When Lauren finally came out, her expression was unreadable. Mrs. Morrison, Miss Harper, can we talk privately? They went into Diana's study. Lauren closed the door. I've completed my assessment, Lauren said, and I need to tell you something off the record first. Rachel's heart stopped. What? Off the record. I believe you. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've interviewed hundreds of children. Lucas is clearly anxious. He mentioned that his father yells at you, that you cry, yet he has bad dreams. Those are classic signs of a child living in a high-conflict home. Rachel felt tears start to form. Lauren continued, on the record, I'm going to report that Lucas is safe, well cared for, and shows no signs of physical abuse or neglect, that he has appropriate food, shelter, and medical care, that his mother is attentive and responsive to his needs. Well, thank you, Rachel whispered. But I need to warn you, Mr. Morrison's attorney is going to argue that Lucas's anxiety is your fault, that you're the one causing the conflict, that the child would be better off with his father. That's not true. I know, but in court, it's not about truth. It's about who tells the better story. Lauren stood up. My report will be filed with the court tomorrow. It should be on Judge Sanders' desk before your hearing on the 6th. After Lauren left, Rachel collapsed on Diana's couch. She believes me. I know, Diana said. That's good. That's very good. But it might not be enough. We'll make it enough. January 3rd, Rachel's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Rachel, we need to talk. Cole's voice. Rachel's hands started shaking. You're violating the restraining order. I'm not within 500 feet of you. I'm calling. That's allowed. Please, just listen for a minute. Rachel looked at Diana, who was shaking her head no, mouthing the words, hang up. But Rachel said, I'm listening. Cole's voice was different, softer, broken. I was wrong about Amber, about everything. I was selfish and stupid, and I hurt you. I know that now. Rachel didn't say anything. But Rachel, Lucas is my son too, and I'm terrified I'm going to lose him. I don't want to fight you in court. I don't want lawyers and judges deciding our son's future. Can we just talk, face to face, work this out like adults? The restraining order doesn't allow that. You can modify it for mediation purposes. Diana can be there. My lawyer can be there. But please, let's try to work this out without destroying each other. Rachel felt something shift in her chest. She was so tired of fighting, so tired of being afraid. And she was pregnant, nearly 7 weeks now, and terrified of how she was going to afford a lawyer for months of court battles. What if Cole was being genuine? What if he really wanted to co-parent? What if they could avoid all of this? Diana was still shaking her head, still mouthing no. But Rachel said, okay, mediation, tomorrow, 2 p.m., Diana's office, your lawyer, my lawyer, and a professional mediator. Thank you, Rachel, I mean it. Thank you. He hung up. Diana grabbed Rachel's arm. That was a mistake. What if he's serious? What if he's willing to be reasonable? Men like Cole don't become reasonable, Rachel. They become strategic. January 4th, 2 p.m. Rachel walked into Diana's conference room. Cole sat on the other side of the table with Richard Hartley. A professional mediator, a woman named Susan Campbell, sat at the head of the table. Cole looked terrible. He hadn't shaved. His eyes were red and puffy. His shirt was wrinkled. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Rachel, he said when she walked in, thank you for coming. Rachel sat down next to Diana. Tried to keep her face neutral. Susan explained the mediation process. Both parties would present their positions. They would try to find common ground, reach an agreement that worked for everyone. Richard spoke first. My client wants joint custody, equal parenting time. He's willing to agree to the name change if it means avoiding a prolonged custody battle. Rachel's heart lifted. He was giving up the name fight? Diana's face was impassive. What about the protective order? We'd like that dropped, or at minimum modified to allow co-parenting communication. Based on what assurances? Cole spoke directly to Rachel. Based on me promising I'll never hurt you again. I'll do therapy, anger management, whatever you need. I just want to be Lucas's father. Rachel felt tears forming. Maybe he meant it. Maybe people could change. Maybe this nightmare could end peacefully. They talked for 3 hours, negotiated every detail, joint legal custody, primary physical custody to Rachel. Cole would get Lucas every other weekend plus alternating holidays. The protective order would be modified to allow parenting communication through a court-approved app. Both of them would attend family therapy. Cole would complete an anger management program. At 5:47 p.m., they drafted a preliminary agreement. Rachel signed it with shaking hands. Diana pulled her aside afterward. Rachel, this feels wrong. He's giving up too easily. I think it's a trap. But Rachel was exhausted. She wanted peace. She wanted to believe that Cole could be reasonable. Or maybe he's finally being a decent human being. I'm tired, Di. I just want this to be over. They left the mediation. Rachel felt lighter than she had in weeks. She thought she was safe. She thought the worst was over. She was catastrophically wrong. January 5th, 5:17 a.m., Rachel woke up to her phone ringing, Diana's number. Rachel, turn on the news now. Channel 7, Boston Local News. Rachel grabbed the remote with trembling hands and turned on the television in Diana's guest room. The morning news anchor had a serious expression. We begin this morning with a disturbing story, a recording allegedly showing an unstable mother during a custody dispute has been released to this station. Rachel's blood turned to ice. The recording which we are about to play appears to show Rachel Harper, formerly Rachel Morrison, in distress while caring for her 4-year-old son. We want to warn viewers that the audio is disturbing. They played the recording, Rachel's own voice, screaming, "You're killing me! Do you understand that? You're destroying me!" The sound of Lucas crying in the background. Rachel's voice again, "I can't do this anymore. I can't." The sound of something breaking, glass shattering. The anchor continued. The recording was submitted to Child Protective Services and to this station by attorneys representing Cole Morrison, Miss Harper's estranged husband. CPS has announced they will be reopening their investigation into the welfare of the child. Rachel stared at the television in horror. Diana, that recording, that's from the night I confronted Cole about the affair. He was screaming at me. I was responding to him. But he edited it. He cut out his voice. He made it sound like I was just screaming at Lucas. Diana's voice was tight. I know, and it's going to be very difficult to prove. He didn't fake the recording. He just edited it, selected specific moments out of context. What do I do? We wait for CPS to come back, and we hope that Lauren Phillips remembers what she saw when she was here. But Lauren Phillips didn't come back. At 10 a.m., a different caseworker arrived, James Brennan, older. His eyes were cold and skeptical. Ms. Harper, I'm here to conduct a follow-up investigation. There have been new allegations regarding your mental state and your fitness to care for your son. That recording was edited. It's not what it sounds like. That's what we're here to determine. Where is Lucas? Rachel took him upstairs to Lucas's room. James interviewed Lucas for 45 minutes. When he came out, his expression was grave. Miss Harper, Lucas reported to me that you've been very sad lately, that you cry frequently, that you told him you can't do this anymore. Is that accurate? Rachel felt panic rising. I've been stressed. I'm going through a difficult divorce. I understand that, but have you considered that this level of stress might be affecting your ability to properly care for your son? I would never hurt Lucas. I'm not suggesting you would intentionally harm him, but emotional instability can be damaging to a child. I'm recommending that you undergo a full psychiatric evaluation before we close this case. And until then, Lucas can remain with you, but we will be monitoring the situation very closely. If there are any further incidents, any signs that his welfare is at risk, we will be forced to take action. After James left, Rachel called Cole. She was shaking with fury. You edited that recording. You made me sound like I'm insane. Cole's voice was calm, too calm. Rachel, I simply submitted evidence to CPS, audio from an argument we had. If they misinterpreted the context, that's not my responsibility. Perhaps you should ask yourself why your behavior is so easy to misinterpret. You bastard. See? There's that anger again, that volatile temper. You really should get help with that, for Lucas's sake. He hung up. Rachel sat on Diana's couch and tried not to scream. The mediation agreement was dead. Cole had never intended to honor it. He had lured her into a false sense of security, gotten her to sign a preliminary agreement, and then immediately attacked her credibility. It was brilliant, cruel, and devastatingly effective. Diana sat down next to her. This is what he does. This is who he is. And now we know. No more trying to reason with him. No more hoping he'll be decent. From now on, we treat him like the enemy he is. Rachel nodded. She felt something harden inside her chest. Cole wanted war. She would give him war. But first, she needed to survive the next attack, because she knew deep in her bones that this was only the beginning. Cole Morrison was just getting started. January 8th, 3:17 in the morning. Lucas woke up screaming, Mommy, Mommy, my tummy hurts. Rachel bolted out of bed and ran to his room. Lucas was curled up on his side, his face twisted with pain. She felt his forehead, burning hot. She grabbed the thermometer, 104.3 degrees Fahrenheit. It's okay, baby. We're going to the hospital. She threw on clothes, wrapped Lucas in a blanket, and ran to her car. Diana appeared at the top of the stairs in her bathrobe. What's wrong? Lucas has a high fever and severe stomach pain. I'm taking him to the ER. I'll meet you there. Rachel drove through the empty streets of Boston, one hand on the steering wheel and one hand on Lucas. He was crying softly in the back seat. Mommy, it hurts. I know, sweetheart. We're almost there. At the hospital, doctors examined Lucas quickly, took his temperature, pressed on his abdomen. He cried out when they touched the lower right side. We need to do an ultrasound, the doctor said. I suspected appendicitis. 30 minutes later, the diagnosis was confirmed. Dr. Sherman, the attending surgeon, came out to talk to Rachel. We need to operate immediately. His appendix is inflamed. If it ruptures, it could lead to serious complications. Operate, yes. Do whatever you need to do. Dr. Sherman hesitated. Are you the sole custodial parent? I have temporary full custody. Why? In Massachusetts, medical decisions for a minor require consent from both legal parents unless there's a court order stating otherwise. Does your custody order specify sole medical decision-making? Rachel felt her stomach drop. I have the Connecticut order. It grants me temporary full physical custody, but it doesn't specifically address medical decisions. Then I need to contact the father, hospital policy. Please, he needs surgery now. You said if his appendix ruptures, I understand, but I need legal consent from both parents. What's the father's phone number? Rachel gave them Cole's number with shaking hands. 90 minutes later, Cole Morrison walked into the emergency room. He was wearing an expensive suit, and he wasn't alone. Richard Hartley was with him, carrying a briefcase. Cole went directly to the doctors. Of course I consent to the surgery. I'm his father. I love him. His performance was perfect, concerned, caring, reasonable. Lucas was wheeled into surgery at 6:43 a.m. Rachel and Cole sat in the surgical waiting room, 30 feet apart, not speaking. Diana arrived 20 minutes later, took one look at Richard Hartley and understood immediately. At 7:15 a.m., Richard approached Rachel. Miss Harper, while we're both here, my client would like to discuss the custody arrangement. Rachel stared at him in disbelief. My son is in surgery, which is precisely why we're concerned. This is the second medical emergency Lucas has experienced in your care in the past month. The ear infections. Now this. We're questioning whether the stress of your situation is affecting your ability to recognize warning signs and seek timely medical care. Are you insane? Appendicitis isn't caused by stress. No, but a distracted, emotionally unstable parent might not notice symptoms in time. The hospital notes indicate that Lucas complained of stomach pain for approximately 48 hours before you brought him to the emergency room. Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe. He said it was a normal stomach ache. Children get stomach aches all the time. Or a more attentive parent would have recognized the severity of the situation sooner. Ms. Harper, my client, is filing an emergency motion this morning. He is requesting temporary custody transfer pending your completion of a full psychological evaluation. Diana stepped between them. You're using a child's medical emergency as legal ammunition? You're disgusting. We're protecting a child from a parent who may be too unstable to recognize a medical crisis. Get out of this hospital. We'll see you in court, Miss Harper. Again. Lucas came out of surgery 3 hours later, groggy from anesthesia but stable. He reached for Rachel. Mommy! Cole stepped forward. I'm here too, buddy. Lucas started crying. I want Mommy. Cole's face hardened for just a second. Then the mask came back. He stepped away. Rachel held Lucas's hand and tried not to cry. Later that day, after Cole had left, after Lucas had fallen asleep, Diana showed Rachel the new court filing. Emergency motion for temporary custody transfer. Cole was arguing that Rachel's failure to recognize the severity of Lucas's appendicitis demonstrated her inability to properly care for him, that her emotional state was affecting her judgment, that Lucas would be safer with his father. The hearing was scheduled for January 11th, 3 days away, and this time Rachel wasn't sure she could win. January 10th, the day before the emergency custody hearing. Rachel sat at Diana's kitchen table while Lucas slept upstairs, still recovering from his surgery. Diana slid a document across the table. Rachel, there's something you need to know. About the judge. Rachel's hands were shaking as she picked up the paper. It was a profile. Judge Sarah Chambers, presiding over the emergency hearing tomorrow. I did some research, Diana said quietly. Judge Chambers went to Wellesley College, class of 1981. Do you know who else was in that class? Rachel's stomach dropped. Patricia Morrison, Cole's mother. No, 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 no. They were in the same sorority. They serve on the same hospital board. They're both on the planning committee for the Wellesley Alumni Association. Rachel felt the room spinning. She's friends with Cole's mother? I don't know if they're friends, but they know each other. They move in the same circles. I'm going to file a motion to recuse her. But Rachel, it might not work. And even if it does, Cole will just keep trying until he finds a sympathetic judge. He has unlimited money, unlimited time, unlimited connections. And I have what? $12,000 in a guest room in my best friend's house? Diana grabbed her hands. You have the truth. Rachel laughed bitterly. The truth? The truth is that I'm pregnant and broke and about to lose both my children. Diana's eyes widened. What did you just say? Rachel's hand went instinctively to her stomach. She hadn't told anyone yet, hadn't even fully processed it herself. I'm pregnant, almost 7 weeks. I found out right before I left Cole. And if he finds out, he'll use it against me. He'll say I can't handle one child, let alone two, or worse, he'll try to take this baby too. Rachel, I'm going to lose, aren't I? Cole is going to win. He always wins. He has the money, the connections, the ruthless lawyer, and I have nothing. Diana's voice was fierce. You have something he doesn't have. You have the love of your child. You have the truth, and you have me. That's not enough. It has to be enough. Because Rachel, if you give up now, Cole wins. He gets everything. Lucas, your future, your freedom. Is that what you want? Rachel wiped her eyes. No. Then we fight, tomorrow, in front of Judge Chambers. We present our evidence. We tell your story, and we pray that the judge sees through Cole's lies. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. She lay in bed thinking about Lucas, about the baby growing inside her, about everything she stood to lose. At 2 a.m., she got up and went to the window, looked out at the dark Boston street, and she made a decision. She wasn't going to lose, not without fighting with everything she had. If Cole wanted to destroy her, she would have to destroy him first. January 11th, the emergency custody hearing. The courtroom was small and sterile. Judge Sarah Chambers sat behind the bench. She was 63 years old with perfectly styled gray hair and a severe expression. Rachel sat next to Diana at the petitioner's table. Cole sat with Richard Hartley at the respondent's table. Richard presented Cole's case first. He was smooth and persuasive. Your Honor, we're here today because of a pattern of concerning behavior by Rachel Harper. The edited recording that was played on the news, which I should note, has not been disputed as authentic. Miss Harper was indeed screaming in distress while her young son cried in the background. Rachel started to object, but Diana put a hand on her arm. Richard continued. Lucas himself had told the CPS investigator that his mother has been very sad, that she cries frequently, that she told him she can't do this anymore. Your Honor, Diana interrupted, Miss Harper is going through a difficult divorce. Some emotional response is normal and expected. Perhaps, Richard said smoothly, but when that emotional response affects her judgment to the point where she delays seeking medical care for a child with appendicitis, it becomes a serious concern. He pulled out hospital records. These notes indicate that Lucas complained of stomach pain for approximately 48 hours before Miss Harper brought him to the emergency room. The surgeon's notes indicate that the appendix was significantly inflamed, that if treatment had been delayed another 12 hours, rupture was likely. Rachel felt sick. He said it was a normal stomach ache, she whispered to Diana. Diana stood up. Your Honor, appendicitis symptoms can be subtle and easily mistaken for a stomach virus. No reasonable parent would rush a child to the ER for every complaint of stomach pain. But a stable, attentive parent would recognize when symptoms worsen and require immediate care, Richard countered. Judge Chambers made notes. Her expression was unreadable. Richard called character witnesses. Cole's colleagues from the hedge fund, all of them testified that Cole was a devoted father, responsible, caring, and concerned about his son's welfare. Then Richard played the edited recording again. In the sterile courtroom, it sounded even worse. Rachel's voice, screaming, Lucas crying, glass breaking. Your Honor, this is a woman in crisis. She fled across state lines, changed her child's name without proper notification to the father. She's exhibiting clear signs of emotional instability. My client is simply asking for temporary custody while Miss Harper receives the mental health treatment and she clearly needs. Diana presented Rachel's case. She submitted the unedited recordings showing Cole's abuse, the favorable CPS report from Lauren Phillips, medical expert testimony explaining that appendicitis symptoms can develop rapidly. Your Honor, this is a textbook case of an abuser using the legal system to continue his control. Cole Morrison is a wealthy, well-connected man who cannot accept that his wife left him. He has been systematically trying to discredit her, to make her look unstable, to take away the one thing she has left, her son. Judge Chambers listened, made more notes. Her face revealed nothing. When both sides had finished, Judge Chambers spoke. I've reviewed all the evidence presented today. This is a complex case with credible allegations on both sides. Rachel's heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone in the courtroom could hear it. However, I am deeply troubled by several factors. First, the recording submitted by Mr. Morrison. While it may have been edited, it does show a woman in significant emotional distress. Second, the flight across state lines and the secret name change, while technically legal, demonstrate a pattern of evasion and manipulation. Third, Lucas has experienced 2 significant medical incidents in Miss Harper's care in recent weeks. No, please no. Given these concerns, I am granting Mr. Morrison's emergency motion. Temporary physical custody is hereby transferred to Cole Morrison, effective immediately. Miss Harper will have supervised visitation twice weekly, pending completion of a psychiatric evaluation by a court-approved professional. No, Rachel stood up. Your Honor, please, you don't understand. He's lying. He's manipulating everything. Please don't do this. Miss Harper, my decision is final. I understand this is difficult, but it is in the best interest of the child. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Rachel felt Diana's arms around her, but she couldn't hear what Diana was saying. Everything sounded distant and muffled. A CPS officer approached. Miss Harper, we need to arrange pickup of Lucas today. Where is he currently? He's recovering from surgery. He needs me. Mr. Morrison has arranged for a private nurse. We need to know his location. Diana whispered urgently, Rachel, you have to tell them. If you don't, they'll charge you with custodial interference. Rachel gave them Diana's address. Her voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. 2 hours later, they came for Lucas. He was still weak from surgery, still on pain medication, but they made him get dressed anyway. When Lucas realized what was happening, he started crying, then screaming, Mommy, Mommy, don't let them take me, please. Rachel tried to hold him, but the CPS officer physically pulled her away. Baby, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Mommy is going to fix this. I promise. I promise. But they put him in Cole's car anyway. Lucas's screams echoed as Cole drove away. Rachel collapsed on Diana's front steps. She sobbed until there was nothing left inside her. She had lost. Cole had won. The system had failed her, and she had no idea how to get her son back. January 12th. Rachel sat in Diana's guest room. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, hadn't showered, could barely move. Diana brought soup. You have to eat. Why? Because you're pregnant, because you need strength, because this isn't over. Rachel's voice was hollow. It is over. Cole won. He has Lucas. He has the judge in his pocket. He has unlimited money for lawyers. I have nothing. You have the truth. The truth doesn't matter if no one believes it. Diana's phone rang. She answered, listened, then handed it to Rachel. It's for you. Rachel took the phone. Hello? A woman's voice. Young, nervous. Miss Harper? My name is Morgan Winters. I was Cole Morrison's executive assistant for 6 years, and I have information you need to hear. Rachel sat up straighter. Who are you? I'm the one who scheduled his meetings with Amber Collins, who booked the hotel rooms, who transferred money into accounts you weren't supposed to know about. I did all of it because I was terrified of him. Why are you calling me now? Because I watched the news coverage. I saw them take Lucas from you, and I remembered something I tried to forget. There was another assistant before me. She told me Cole had been married before, that his first wife said he was abusive, that no one believed her, that she died in a car accident 2 years after their divorce. Rachel's blood went cold. Cole was married before? Her name was Jennifer Schaefer. They were married from 2009 to 2011. She tried to get a restraining order against him during the divorce. The judge denied it, said she was being dramatic. 2 years later, she drove off a cliff on a clear day. You think Cole killed her? I can't prove it. But Miss Harper, I think Cole destroys women. Methodically, systematically, and then when they break, he uses their breaking as proof that he was right all along. Why didn't you come forward before? I was afraid, I still am, but I can't stay silent anymore. I have evidence, 6 years of emails, calendar entries, wire transfers, and recordings. Rachel's heart started beating faster. What kind of recordings? Cole talks to himself, rehearses arguments out loud. I started recording him after he screamed at me one too many times. He doesn't know I have them. What do they say? Morgan's voice dropped to a whisper. Things like, Rachel will break eventually. They all do. You just have to be patient. And Lucas is leverage. If I have Lucas, she'll agree to anything to get him back. And my personal favorite, the trick is making them think it's their fault. That's when you've really won. Rachel started crying, but not from despair, from rage. Will you testify? I can't, not publicly. He'll destroy my career, but I can give you the recordings, the emails, everything, and I can point you to other people who might talk. Who? Jennifer Schaefer's sister, Emily. She lives in Vermont. She's been trying to tell people about Cole for years. No one listens. January 13th. Rachel and Diana drove to Burlington, Vermont, to a small coffee shop where Emily Schaefer was waiting. Emily was 41, a high school teacher. Her eyes were sad in a way that suggested she had been sad for a very long time. You look like her, Emily said when she saw Rachel. Not physically, but that look in your eyes, the exhaustion, the fear, the hope that someone will finally believe you. Jennifer had that same look. They sat down. Emily pulled out a folder. My sister was brilliant, funny, strong, until she met Cole Morrison. Then she became small, scared. She called me crying all the time. Said Cole told her she was broken, that she needed fixing, that she was lucky he stayed with her. Did she report him? She tried, filed for a restraining order, but Cole's lawyer painted her as unstable, said she was emotionally fragile after a miscarriage. The judge denied the order. Rachel's hand went to her own stomach. Emily continued. Jennifer was 8 weeks pregnant when she miscarried. She was devastated. Cole told people she was using it for attention. 2 months later, she filed for divorce. 6 months after that, she was dead. The car accident? Single vehicle crash on a clear day. No skid marks, no evidence she tried to brake. Just drove straight off a cliff. Police ruled it an accident, but Jennifer had been getting better. She was dating again, seeing a therapist, planning to go back to school. Emily slid the folder across the table. This is everything I kept. Jennifer's diary, emails between her and Cole, photos of bruises. It wasn't enough to reopen the case, but maybe it's enough to show a pattern. Rachel opened the diary with trembling hands, read Jennifer's words. Cole says I'm imagining things. Maybe he's right. Maybe I am crazy. But I swear he's stealing my anti-anxiety pills. The bottle is always lower than it should be. He told his parents I tried to hurt myself. I didn't. I was cutting vegetables and the knife slipped. But now everyone thinks I'm suicidal. I can't tell what's real anymore. Did I forget our anniversary? Or did he never tell me about it? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Rachel recognized every word. She had lived it, was living it. He's doing the exact same thing to me, she whispered. Emily grabbed her hand. Then stop him. Please, don't let my sister's death mean nothing. That evening, Rachel, Diana, and Morgan sat in Diana's office. Diana spread documents across the table. Here's what we have. Evidence of a pattern. Jennifer's case plus Rachel's case equals two women, same tactics. Morgan's recordings proving Cole deliberately manipulates. Financial records showing hidden assets. Medical records showing both women had suspicious injuries. Is it enough? Rachel asked. I don't know, but we have one advantage now. What? Cole thinks he's won. He's gotten arrogant, confident, and arrogant people make mistakes. Morgan leaned forward. There's something else. I saw an email before I quit my job. Cole is planning something for this weekend. A big family photo shoot at his parents' estate. He's going to post pictures all over social media. Show everyone what a devoted father he is. When? January 18th, his parents' place in Greenwich. Rachel felt an idea forming, dangerous, risky, but maybe their only chance. What if I showed up? Diana's eyes widened. You have a restraining order. You'd be arrested. What if I confronted him, in front of witnesses, made him show who he really is? And what if we recorded every word? Morgan understood immediately. You want to make him break. He thinks he's won. He'll be confident, maybe overconfident, maybe confident enough to tell the truth. Diana shook her head. Rachel, if you violate that restraining order and this doesn't work, you'll go to jail. You'll lose any chance of getting Lucas back. Rachel met her eyes. Then we better make sure it works. They spent the next 4 days planning. Morgan would be there with a recording device. Diana would film from her car. They would hire a photographer who would capture everything. Rachel would confront Cole, push him, make him lose control, and they would record every single word. On January 18th, Rachel drove to Greenwich. She was going to end this, one way or another. January 18th, the Morrison family estate sat on 12 acres of pristine Greenwich property. Stone mansion, manicured lawns, the kind of wealth that whispered power. A professional photographer was setting up equipment on the south lawn. Cole stood with Lucas, who looked miserable in a suit that was clearly too tight. Lucas, smile for the camera. Cole's voice was sharp. Lucas's lower lip trembled. I want Mommy. Cole's hand tightened on Lucas's shoulder. Hard. Mommy is sick. We've talked about this. Now, smile. I don't want to smile. Lucas started crying. Cole grabbed Lucas's arm and squeezed. You will smile or you will not get ice cream tonight. Television, or any of your toys. Do you understand me? The photographer shifted uncomfortably. Sir, maybe we should take a break. Cole let go of Lucas immediately. His face transformed into a warm, charming smile. No, he's just tired. Lucas, buddy, one more picture, and then we'll get ice cream, okay? Rachel's car pulled up the long driveway. Patricia Morrison's voice cut through the air like a knife. What is she doing here? Cole, call the police immediately. Rachel got out of the car. She walked toward them slowly, calmly. I'm here to see my son. Cole's eyes were cold. You're violating the restraining order. You're going to jail. Then call the police, but before you do, I think everyone here should hear what I have to say. 2 more cars pulled up. Diana's, then Morgan's. Cole looked between them. What is this? Rachel stopped 10 feet away from him. This is your last chance, Cole. Drop the custody fight. Agree to joint custody with me as primary parent, or I release everything. Everything? What everything? Morgan stepped forward, held up a USB drive. 6 years of evidence, Boom. Every lie you told, every affair you hid, every dollar you moved into accounts Rachel wasn't supposed to know about. And recordings, so many recordings. Cole's face went white. Morgan, you're fired. I quit 3 days ago, and I already sent copies to the IRS, the SEC, your company's board of directors, your father's oncologist. Patricia's voice was shrill. You're bluffing. Diana spoke calmly. We also have Jennifer Schaefer's diary, and her sister is willing to testify about the pattern of abuse that led to Jennifer's death. Cole's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Jennifer was unstable. She killed herself. Rachel met his eyes. Is that what you'll say about me when I mysteriously drive off a cliff? Are you accusing me of murder? I'm saying you destroy women and then you erase them, but you're not erasing me. Lucas had been watching this whole exchange. Now he broke free from Patricia's grip and ran to Rachel. Mommy! Rachel caught him, held him tight. Cole stepped forward. Put him down. Now. No. You're violating a court order. Diana held up her phone. I'm recording this, Cole. Every word, every move. If you lay one finger on her, it's assault on video. Cole stopped, his fist clenched, breathing hard. Then his face changed, softened. He tried a different tactic. Rachel, please, let's not do this in front of Lucas. He doesn't need to see his parents fight like this. You're right, which is why you're going to agree to my terms. I can't do that. Rachel's voice was steel. Why? Because your father is dying and you need to maintain the perfect family image to get your inheritance. Cole froze. How did you know about that? Morgan's voice was quiet. I typed your father's will, Cole. I know about the $50 million trust. I know it requires you to be married with children and maintaining a stable family life. I know you're about to lose everything if Rachel wins this custody case. Robert Morrison, who had been standing silently near the house, spoke. His voice was weak from the cancer eating him alive. Cole, is this true? Dad, it's not what it sounds like. Did you marry this woman to secure your inheritance? Cole's careful mask started to crack. No, I mean, at first, maybe that was part of it, but I did care about her. Part of it? Rachel's voice cut through. You needed a wife, someone grateful, someone who wouldn't ask questions. And when I stopped being convenient, you decided to replace me with Amber. Cole exploded. You don't understand anything. I worked my entire life to earn Dad's respect, to prove I was worthy of the Morrison name, to build something, and then you decided you weren't happy? You decided you deserved more. I decided I deserved to be treated like a human being. I gave you everything. Cole's voice was rising. A mansion, money, status. You were nobody when I met you, a grieving orphan with no family and no prospects. I saved you. And there it was, the truth he could never hide. Patricia's voice tried to cut in. Cole, stop talking. But he couldn't stop. You think taking Lucas and changing his name makes you strong? You're weak, Rachel. You've always been weak. Broken. I tried to fix you, but you were too damaged. And the second you step out of this protective bubble you've built, the world is going to destroy you. Rachel's voice was calm. Maybe, but I'll still be free. Lucas was crying against her shoulder. Daddy's mean. I don't want to live with Daddy anymore. Lucas, I didn't mean. You're mean. You yell at Mommy. You make her cry. I hate you. The photographer had been recording the entire confrontation, exactly as Diana had arranged. Rachel looked at Cole one last time. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to agree to joint custody with me as primary parent. You'll have visitation every other weekend, supervised for the first 6 months. You'll pay child support, and you'll leave me alone. Or this recording goes public. Your company sees it, your clients see it, your dying father sees exactly who you really are before he goes. Cole looked at his father, at his mother, at the photographer still recording, at Morgan and Diana with their phones out, at Lucas crying in Rachel's arms and saying he hated him. He was trapped, cornered, defeated. Fine. His voice was barely audible. You win. Say it clearly, for the recording. Cole's voice was louder now, defeated. I agree to joint custody with Rachel Harper as primary parent. Supervised visitation for me every other weekend. Child support. All of it. Thank you. Rachel turned to walk away. Cole's voice stopped her. Rachel, she looked back. I did love you, once, before you became this. Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. No, Cole, you loved the version of me that didn't fight back. The version that stayed small and quiet and grateful. But that woman is gone, and she's never coming back. She walked away with Lucas in her arms, Diana and Morgan flanked her like guards. Behind them, Cole Morrison stood alone on his family's perfect lawn. For the first time in his privileged life, he had lost. Really, truly lost. And he knew it. 6 months later, Rachel's apartment in Northampton, Massachusetts was small. 2 bedrooms, second-floor walk-up. No mansion, no marble counters, no designer furniture. But it was hers. Lucas played with the blocks on the living room floor. He was in therapy twice a week. Still had occasional nightmares. Still asked why Daddy was so mean. But he laughed more now. Played more. He was becoming a child again, instead of a small, frightened thing. Rachel sat at the kitchen table. Her pregnant belly was obvious now, 32 weeks. The baby moved constantly, little flutters and kicks that reminded her why she had fought so hard. She was working again. Part-time at a local art gallery. It didn't pay much, but it was honest work. Work she had chosen. And that made all the difference. Diana had handled the legal finalization. Divorce final in April, joint custody with Rachel as primary parent. Cole got every other weekend, still supervised by a court-appointed monitor. Child support, $3,500 per month, arrived like clockwork. Cole's company had settled quietly with Morgan, paid her a confidentiality settlement. She had invested the money and started a nonprofit helping domestic violence survivors document their abuse for legal cases. Robert Morrison had died in March, and in his final weeks, he had changed his will. The $50 million trust went to charity instead of to Cole. Cole still took his visitation weekends. He showed up on time, followed the rules. The supervised visits were stiff and awkward, but Lucas tolerated them. But Cole was hollow now. His career had survived, but his reputation hadn't. The recording had leaked anyway. Diana claimed not to know how. Morgan smiled when asked. Greenwich Society whispered. His partners at the firm watched him carefully. Amber had left him for someone else. July 24th. Rachel's water broke while she was folding laundry. Diana drove her to the hospital. 12 hours of labor, then a baby girl, 6 pounds 8 ounces. Healthy, perfect. The nurse held out the birth certificate paperwork. Name for the baby? Emma Harper. And father's name? Rachel paused, looked at the nurse. No father listed, just me. Diana brought Lucas to the hospital that afternoon. He was allowed in the recovery room for a few minutes. He touched Emma's tiny hand with one finger, gentle and wondering. She's so small. You were this small once. Is she ours? Just ours? Rachel met his eyes. Just ours, baby. Not Daddy's. Daddy doesn't know about her yet, and when I tell him, he won't have any legal claim to her. She's mine, and yours, and no one else's. Lucas smiled, really smiled. Good. Rachel held both her children. Her phone buzzed. A text from Cole. Heard you're in the hospital. Is Lucas okay? Rachel looked at the message for a long moment. Then she turned off her phone. She didn't owe him explanations, didn't owe him updates, didn't owe him anything. Through the hospital window, she could see the sunset painting the sky orange and pink. She thought about Jennifer Schaefer, about all the women who hadn't made it out. She thought about how close she had come to being one of them, and she held her children tighter. 1 year later. Lucas's 6th birthday party at a local park in Northampton. Small gathering, Diana's family, a few kids from Lucas's first grade class. Morgan, who had become like an aunt. Emma toddled around on unsteady legs, almost walking now. Rachel took photos of her children playing. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Happy birthday to Lucas. I saw the photos on Instagram. He looks happy. Signed with just the letter C. Rachel stared at the message. Started to type a response. He is happy. Thank you. Then she stopped. Deleted the draft. Blocked the number. Put her phone away. Because she didn't owe him closure. Didn't owe him connection. Didn't owe him anything. Lucas ran up to her. Mommy, can we do cake now? Yes, sweetheart. Emma reached up. Rachel lifted her onto her hip. And standing there in the summer sunshine with both her children, Rachel smiled. Not a forced smile, not a scared smile. Not the smile of a woman pretending everything was fine, but a real smile. The smile of a woman who had survived, who had fought, who had won, the smile of a woman who was finally truly free. Rachel Harper is 34 now. She lives in Northampton with her 2 children, works full-time at an art gallery and freelances as an illustrator. She has never remarried. Lucas is thriving, first grade, honor roll, still sees his father every other weekend. The visits are getting easier, but they're still hard sometimes. Emma doesn't know her father. Someday Rachel will tell her, when she's old enough to understand that sometimes people aren't capable of love in the way we need them to be. Morgan Winters runs a nonprofit called Second Voice. It helps women document psychological abuse for court cases. She has assisted over 200 women in 2 years. Cole Morrison lives alone in a condo in Stamford. His career survived. His reputation didn't. He pays child support on time, takes his visitations seriously. But he's hollow in a way that money can't fix. Jennifer Schaefer's death was never reinvestigated. The case is closed. But her story is no longer forgotten. Emily makes sure of that. The statistics are grim. 1 in 4 women experience psychological abuse in relationships. Financial abuse affects 99% of domestic violence victims. But statistics don't tell the whole story. They don't tell you about the woman who took a pregnancy test in a Target bathroom and decided that day to save herself. They don't tell you about the college roommate who drove 3 hours every day to build a legal case. They don't tell you about the executive assistant who risked everything to tell the truth. They don't tell you about the sister who kept a diary for 12 years waiting for someone to believe her. And they don't tell you about the moment when a woman looks at her body and says, "This is mine, and no one can take it from me." That moment doesn't make the statistics, but it changes everything. If you recognize yourself in Rachel's story, please know this. You're not crazy. You're not imagining things. You're not too sensitive. You're seeing clearly, maybe for the first time. What you do with that clarity is up to you. But you're not alone. National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1-800-799-7233. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They will believe you. They will help you. You deserve to be free. Just like Rachel, just like Jennifer, just like all the women who came before and all the women who will come after. You deserve to be more than someone's possession, more than someone's project, more than someone's convenient wife. You deserve to be yourself. And that woman, the real you, is worth fighting for. Rachel knows this now. She wishes she had known it sooner. But she knows it now. Every morning when she wakes up in her small apartment with her 2 children, she remembers the woman who left on Christmas Eve with nothing but court orders and courage. She remembers the woman who stood on a lawn in Greenwich and faced down the man who tried to erase her. She remembers the woman who chose herself. That woman was her all along. She just had to find her way back. And now, finally, she's home.